Hello, what's up everybody? DST here, back with another video review, and today we're going to be, this is going to be a tutorial on how to make a custom movie Carnage from the Venom Let There Be Carnage movie. And as you can see, I've already got the majority of him painted and fixed up. And the paints I'm using are the Testors acrylic paint. And it does not have to be the Model Masters. I've actually learned that. It's just the normal Testors pack. Comes with black and white primary colors and comes with a acrylic. So, just a quick little recap on this figure. It started out as a crow figure, the Marvel Legends Crow from the Eternals movie, and I actually watched a video making a custom Carnage, and I didn't hear half the words, or I didn't know half the words he was saying because he was speaking Spanish, but I still watched it because maybe I could learn something from it. And he actually did the same thing that I'm doing. He actually took the Marvel Legends Crow figure and turned it into a Carnage. Now, I'm kind of repeating the same steps, but in my own way. So, for starters, what I did is I took my X-Acto knife and I started to trim the shape on the head so he didn't have that weird shape on his head. Then I took his hands and I cut all the fingers off of his hands. And then I took some toothpicks, which I found when it comes to sculpting and such. If you don't have a modeling or sculpting kit, then toothpicks are the ultimate tool. So I just took toothpicks and I cut them into 3 different lengths in the bone of the finger, and I just super glued them together. And then I took some epoxy sculpt, which the guy in the video was using green stuff, but I hear that epoxy sculpt is actually way better than green stuff, because green stuff is like this putty kind of texture mess, but epoxy sculpt is actually way more efficient, from me experiencing it and other videos I've seen on YouTube. But yeah, so I took epoxy sculpt and I wrapped it around the fingers, and I just made the fingers for Carnage. And all that, I actually took some of the tendrils and spikes that the crow figure had, and I cut them off, and I actually super glued them and mounted them on so I cut them up, right? And then I took the cut up parts of the spikes and tendrils and I super glued them onto the arms and legs, and then I coated it to sort of mount it on there securely with some epoxy sculpt, which worked for about a day. And then I dropped him and 4 of his tendrils snapped off. So I had to take all the tendrils off and redo the steps. But this time, I super glued it, I hot glued them, then I put the epoxy sculpt on, then I coated the epoxy sculpt with super glue to make it secure. And still, these things are a pain in the butt because they pop off like almost 24/7. So I have to be extremely careful with this figure. when I was making this figure, I took some epoxy sculpt and made the teeth with on one of the heads for my Carnage. Now I need a lot of heads for Carnage and I might even make a couple for Venom in the future. But for now, it's about Carnage. And I've been trying to tell myself that this is not the official figure yet. Marvel Legends is undoubtedly going to make a Carnage figure, probably using the Crow body mold, which I honestly don't see how they can't, because it's pretty good body mold for the figure. And then maybe add like muscle sculpt on it. But I'm just not patient, and I need to make a lot of stop motion movies in the future that have Carnage. Like, for instance, I want to make a Venom Let There Be Carnage one, which I did have a trailer YouTube short on that. If you haven't already seen it, please go check it out. Appreciate it. And so yeah, I've been wanting to make figures, especially Carnage, for a long time. But anywho, so yeah, the head also turned out not really how I wanted it to. So I did fix that a little bit by just sanding it down, as you can see. And I kind of sanded it into like a smile, because Carnage, he's got kind of a like smile, but it's bucked up with teeth. It's not really like Venom's. So I don't know if it's just a smile or what it is, but yeah, so there's that. And I made another head that had enamel paint, which looks horrific. It's kind of what I was going for, because I wanted a head that would show that he was in pain and such, because I wanted a head like where I'm doing stop motion, so I could have him like have sound and fire hurt him, and then have like a crazy face, which is actually what I received, because this is worse than fire and sound. And I actually made my own ball joint for this, so yeah. And it kind of sticks up too much. Like, he's got a very elongated neck. It's like he's got two necks on this, so it didn't really turn out good. And the head is way too big. But if I have tendrils, like visual effects, such like that, going everywhere of his tendrils, hopefully it won't be a head. Plus, I'll rarely be using this head. I'll probably be using a different head. Let me just go ahead and show you guys my car. I got the eyes, which was so hard. The little black lines in his eyes were so hard to get, because my my paintbrush was not fine enough, and it was kind of hard. And speaking of which, I use the artist brushes, the high quality artist brushes, the value pack one. And I did get this on Amazon, and it came with two of them, so I did not just buy this extra one just to show you the other one. I just haven't pulled these out. They give you two packages of them, of paintbrushes. You get like a fine tip, which, as you can see, I've been using. You get like all these different fine tips, and then you get more of a bigger brush. So yeah, those are the paintbrushes I use. Now, for this tutorial, you will be needing a couple things. Some I've already mentioned, and the first thing we're going to knock out is paintbrushes. You're going to need these. I suggest these because they were the cheapest, and it had a fine tip, and that's kind of really what I needed the most. Next thing, I already mentioned you're going to need some toothpicks. You're going to need some testers of paint. You're going to need a thing of super glue, which this is a super glue pen. I recommend that. A X-Acto knife, or in my case, a box cutter knife, which I'm actually not familiar with using these. I use a X-Acto knife, but the tip broke off. You're also going to need some epoxy sculpt, which is one of the most important things that you are going to need. One of the things I recommend doing is taking the bootleg, the eBay bootleg Amazing Yamaguchi Carnage, and just salvaging its parts to make this Carnage. Because if you can tell, I took one of the spike tendrils that was on my Yamaguchi Carnage and I just glued it on there, which does not affect articulation, by the way, in case you were wondering. I also got one up on the forearm right over there. And I'm going to be putting them all over him. Another heads up. You are going to need to make some weapons. And when you get the Marvel Legends Crow, he does come with two like hand tendril things, which are kind of weird. They're not hands, but they're like forearms, which is totally new for Marvel Legends as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, you're going to need to make two weapons. One of them I haven't made just yet, which we're going to be showing in this video. But there's this one that I did make, and what I did was I took a cereal box, I took my X-Acto knife, and I just traced a shape, and I traced a shape of Carnage's like claw hand, which I've never seen him use in the movie besides the one time that he pulled it out. It's kind of a waste of CGI, but whatever. And you're going to want to glue. I recommend super gluing the first 4 layers of the cereal box into this shape. And then what I did was I super glued it onto the forearm once I cut all the tendrils off. And then I hot glued it here. And then the rest of this like weird looking texture is actually super glue that I just put all up on there. Because if you've seen the Venom Let There Be Carnage movie, you know that Carnage is extremely, like, he's got this weird stringy texture. He's not like normal slimy like Venom. Anyhow, so yeah, and over here you can already tell I took one of the Carnage Yamaguchi hands and I cut all the fingers off, and I've been making fingers out of this. And I've been recently looking at some reference pictures, and apparently Carnage does not actually have these little spikes on the fingers. So I sort of screwed up big. I mean, maybe not that big, hopefully. It won't be such a big notice. But over here is the Yamaguchi Carnage arms, the bootleg. And I took those off of Carnage, like literally yanked them off. And what I am thinking about doing is I'm thinking about putting them on the back of Carnage right here, because in the movie he did have an extra pair of arms that actually came out of his back. And I remember vividly because he's in the church and his tendrils go out everywhere, and then he's got a bunch of spikes on his back. Another good thing that you need to know when you're doing this is the Marvel Legends hand. You can work it with the pegs for the Yamaguchi Carnage, the bootleg. So, like, I'm not going to pop the hands off right now because I'm not going to risk ruining the paint. But if I do for stop motion, I'm going to need some water. I drink that. And you're going to need this little paint tray that the tester's paint pack, if you get the paint pack, actually comes with. It also came with some other white brushes over there. Some other things you're going to need are some paper towels, hot glue gun, super glue, and I haven't got it in hand yet, but you're also going to need some bendy wire, and it's like the bendy wire that's got multiple wires in it, and then it's got like the coating of rubber on it. What you're going to want to do is you just want to cut the rubber off, get the individual wires, and then pull them apart into the shape of the Carnage. But once I got them, I'll actually demonstrate, because anywho, let's get down to it. Fix that up, and we're going to make some teeth with epoxy sculpt. And thing is with epoxy sculpt is, if you're not familiar with it, like you've never used it, couple heads up warnings here. Super duper hard to get right sometimes. If you don't have a scale or something, you can put them together, because you have to have 50%. If you have like one less percentage more or one percentage less than A or B, then it's going to mess it up. Oh, also, you might want to wet your hand. It makes it smoother where it doesn't tack to your hand, so that you can actually mold with it. So you can smooth it out and stuff like that. Time to make some teeth. Yeah, so this is what I got so far with all the teeth. It's looking pretty nice. I just put a little bit of epoxy sculpt. Now, you don't want to put a whole lot of epoxy sculpt on there. I put a very, very small amount. You just want enough where it kind of builds like the shape of Carnage's lip, you know? And then you just want to make it thick and deep enough that way you can actually stick the toothpick, I almost said Q-tip, toothpick cut in there. Now, I cut a very, very small part. Like, I probably went to right about that length on around that length on my smallest tooth. And for my biggest teeth, I went and just did that. See, not very much of a change, but and you don't want to have them stick in there where they're super duper secure. You don't want them to do that, because once it hardens and dries over 24 hours, then you could just seal it in with some super glue, and then just paint over it so it's double whammy secured. So that's what I got so far. This is where I'm gonna stop putting teeth in. In fact, I'm maybe just put a couple tiny itty bitty teeth. Then I'm done with the teeth on this guy. It's looking pretty nice, if I do not say so myself. So, yeah. Also, you want to make sure that all the teeth are straight. Like, you don't want like a rat shape kind of thing going on. They're all straight. But you don't want them like piled up on each other, because Carnage does not have that. He's actually got a very straight looking thing going on, which is awesome. Awesome blossom. And you also want to have your finger wet at all time. That way you can smooth out some of the epoxy sculpt so you don't get fingerprints or anything in there, because the worst looking action figures are the ones with fingerprints in them. So yeah, just gonna put that there. And yeah, so I'm gonna add a couple more teeth on him, and I should be good for the teeth. And then once it dries, I'll just paint it and do whatever.